On today's show, we have Jan Ditchfield. She is an evergreen online marketing expert and podcast strategist who helps coaches, consultants, and course creators turn their knowledge into consistent income without sacrificing their freedom, peace, or life to the internet. With over 25 years in sales and marketing and more than 25 million generated for organizations, she brings a grounded, strategic approach to building a business that actually works long term. Jan built her own $500,000 business largely through her podcast, starting with a $25 microphone and a simple plan. Through her signature frameworks, she helps women create podcasts that don't just grow an audience, but attract ready-to-work clients and generate revenue on repeat. Today, we're going to talk to Jan about podcasting for fertility coaches. I am super excited for you guys to hear this episode, and I cannot wait to dive in. So now, let's welcome Jan to the show. Welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's lovely to be here.
I'm really excited for this conversation. We get a lot of questions around podcasting for coaches and course creators. And so I know that you're the perfect person to interview about this topic.
Well, thank you very much. I'm looking forward to talking about it with you.
So let's just jump right in. We have a lot to cover today. And I would love for the audience just to learn a little bit more about you and hear your story and how you got into this work.
Yeah. So I think probably like a lot of people, I had a very big career, rather high pressured career. And I worked as a professional fundraiser for most of my career, but I was specifically brought in to help fix failing charities. So I would come in and I would make a lot of money, turn things around in really short times and leave and move on to the next project. And throughout my career, I ended up becoming a mom later in life. So I was in my 40s when I became a mother. And I said I was going to take extended time off to really enjoy this because it was something that I very much wanted to be able to have as part of my life. And so I took about 18 months off on a maternity leave and then went back into my career and quickly realized that I did not want to say goodnight to my daughter through a screen every single night. So it was kind of in the middle of a moment of saying, this is not for me anymore. I love my career. It's been a blessing, but it's time for me to move on to a next phase of life. And so I quit my career in a very no backup plan, nothing. I literally stood up, packed up my desk and walked out. I was like, I'm done. Yeah, I'm done. So I started my business right before the pandemic started. And in that time, quickly having to figure out how to get online and pivot. And I was introduced to podcasting. So I ended up launching my very first podcast in December of 2020 to a grand total of 15 downloads is what it was. And with my little tiny $25 microphone I bought off Amazon and started trying to figure this world out. And now fast forward to where I am now, I've built a $500,000 business from my podcast. And I now teach women, especially the course creators, coaches, and consultants, how they can actually take their expertise and place it onto a show that will actually help driving evergreen revenue for their business as well.
Amazing. I love that. And very similar stories. I actually started my business in 2018 and it was out of my own personal struggle with infertility as we were talking offline, and started my podcast in 2020. So I love that. And I love that you're teaching us how to build successful businesses online, because I know there's a lot of questions around that. So thank you for sharing your story. And let's just dive into talk to us about specifically podcasting, why it's such a great tool to build our practices.
One of the reasons why I think podcasting works so well for experts and people who are working in fields that have a lot of sensitivity around them and specifically having to hold a lot of knowledge is that you invite yourself into your audience's life in a very intimate way that no other marketing platform allows. So we can't do this on Instagram the same way. We can't do it through email marketing the same way. But when we podcast, we actually become part of our ideal clients day to day. So we're in their earbuds when they are working out. We are there when they're cooking dinner. We are there when they're doing drop-offs and commutes and all of the things that are that day-to-day time, and they choose us to share that time with. And I think, again, when you are an expert at what you do, it helps to build up that trust a lot faster. And trust, as you know, especially now in the online space, is what leads to conversions. And so we need to find ways to be able to do that differently than how we've perhaps been doing it in the past through social media.
I love that. And I feel the same way. I have people that I'll talk to that want to work with me in my private practice, and they've almost talked to me like I'm a celebrity because I've been in their ear and I've been in their car, and they're like, I know you and I love you. And so it's really cool when that happens. So I can definitely relate to everything that you're saying. And I think it's so powerful to have a podcast. And, you talk about there's certain podcast episodes that really position us as an expert and have more authority. So talk to us about that. Is there certain, is it better to do interviews like this or do solo episodes? Kind of talk to us about that piece.
So the way that I teach it, I actually teach it as a 6-part audio funnel where there are 6 specific episodes that you want to release in a row, 5 of which are solos and 1 of which is actually an interview, but it's a strategic interview. So it's somebody that you bring on who is going to back up your authority, show social proof for what it is that you're able to do for people. And then the other episodes that sit around that are all about helping people make a decision to move forward with working with you. So you set people up to understand how to shift their belief and then provide them with a quick win and then save them from mistakes that they might be making and then introduce that social proof again, which is so important in selling and part of that is, and then you move on to talking about your framework and then you just pitch basically is what you do. And by the time you get to that, people have followed along the journey with you. They learn about all of your thinking in a different way, in a deeper way, and it helps them to make a decision to work with you without feeling like they've been coerced or forced into something because the brain just naturally follows along from that introduction right over to that conversion and you are just the natural person to work with after that.
Gotcha. And I feel too that you hear that message over and over every time you're listening to the podcast and they're saying, book a call with me or get on my, get my free download or whatever it is. And so it's almost like they're conditioning you to do these actions. And then it's not like you said, it's not like they're forcing, it's just the natural next step, which is beautiful.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're talking a lot to fertility coaches and people that want to start fertility coaching businesses. And somebody might be listening to this thinking, I don't know if I'm ready to share my story on a platform like a podcast. So talk to us about that. How do we kind of change our mindsets around that? But also, how do we feel okay to share our story in that way?
It's a great question. And I think in the online space, we've been taught for so long, be an open book and you need to share everything. And that's how you build trust. And that model has shifted a lot lately. And now what we're seeing instead are people choosing to share things that, again, are about pairing with our audience strategically rather than just showing every wound and every scar that we've gone through. So there's an episode that I like to encourage women I work with to create called a relationship episode. And it's really focused on telling specific stories that help you build trust with your audience person to person. So instead of it being something where you are really just sharing without having a strategy behind the share, this is getting very strategic about what's going to help them. So is it behind the scenes? Is it a personal story or personal journey like I told at the beginning here, right? It was part of my reason I'm here is because I struggled as well with fertility. And so how you choose those moments are really about what's going to benefit your audience and make them deepen trust in you rather than just, again, blanket sharing because you feel like you have to do that just because you're now online.
Yeah, and I completely agree there. And I think too, it's your story and you can share it how you wish and you can share pieces of it. You can share all of it. And I think as you grow in your business as well, it becomes, you want to share more because you see how much you're helping people. And so, but it's your choice from the beginning. I feel like it's your choice. So I don't ever want a coach or a practitioner to feel scared to start a business because they don't want to share their story.
Yeah, exactly.
Talk to us about consistency, because this is something that comes up a lot. We were talking offline. I've been podcasting for 7 years. This is our newer show, but you do have to be consistent. So talk to us about that. How important is it to be consistent to have a show that grows?
It is really important. And it's one of those things that I wish that I could say it's not that important, but it really does matter. It specifically matters because of 2 reasons. And one is the algorithm. So the algorithm favors people who release on a regular schedule. And what helps it do is it actually moves you up the charts. So you get more downloads, you get more listeners. The podcasting algorithm acts very differently than other types of algorithms. So it really wants to be your friend. And it's just asking you to do the things that it needs to help you out. And publishing consistently is one of those things. But then on the other side of it, when it comes to building relationships with your audience, when you publish consistently, they know that you're there. And in a field like what we're talking about that you do here and the women that you work with, it really matters because you need to build that trust. And in those moments when things are going wrong or they're struggling or they need that friendly ear, they know that they can tune into you on this day and this time because you're releasing your show. So missing episodes is not the best thing in the world to do, but there are ways to set yourself up so that you don't feel pressured all the time as though you're, kind of behind the 8 ball to get things out, so that if you have a really good schedule in place and a really good system, you can absolutely publish weekly. I publish 2 episodes a week. So it's really about figuring out the right rhythm for you and how it's going to work, but making sure you maintain it.
Sure. And I heard a statistic, and you can confirm this or not, but something about most podcasts fail within the first 50 episodes. So like if you can get the first 50 out, then you're ahead of the curve. Am I saying that correctly, or did I get those numbers wrong?
It's the first 8 episodes. That's it. It's 8. Yet most people never make it to episode 10. So that's really what it is. So if you can make it to episode 10, keep going. You've got something that's working. You're doing a really good job. If you make it to 50, you're really figuring it out. And when you make it to 100, like you're a pro at this level. That's what it is, right? It takes some time to figure out your rhythm and to find your voice. And we say by episode 50, you've kind of got it figured out by then.
Yeah. And I love that you said, 1 to 2 a week. That's also what I do, 1 to 2 a week. And I've done that consistently for 7 years. And people get a little, not upset, but they're looking for you every week, and they're kind of sad when you don't release. And so you really do have to figure out that timing and consistency. Yeah. Any tips around that? I know we could spend a whole show on time management, but any 1 or 2 things where you're like, this really helped me be consistent?
So I use a system that is basically like I schedule all my episodes out in advance. And so it's probably similar to you where I have a calendar and I plan out everything, and I use my own system where I'm talking about those 6 episodes that I release. So I know that I have to do a belief episode, a win, a mistake, and it gives me guidelines right off the bat. So instead of kind of struggling with what am I going to talk about this week, I know what to follow. And I also rely very heavily on SEO strategy. So I have an SEO strategy that I've built into my podcast, and I use that in order to grow my show. So again, I know the words to use, the keywords I'm targeting, the problems that my audience are looking up, that are actively looking in there. And it just makes it easier because, again, I'm not guessing when it comes time to create. I know exactly what to say and how to say it. And so it just becomes this very easy structure. And then I also record on the same time every week. So that's part of it. I have one day blocked off, and I'm like, no meetings, no conversations. I'm just on the mic for that one day so I can get ahead of it.
Exactly. I love that. And that's similar to what I do. I have some calendar blocks. I do 2 days, but they're just 4-hour blocks. And those are my podcast days. And so that really helps because then it's on your schedule, and you can plan your kids around it, or if you have kids and, your family and all the things. So I love that you say that. And you mentioned SEO. And so I want to clear this up because I think this is very confusing for people. SEO in podcasting is very different from SEO in Google or YouTube or any place else where we think about SEO. So talk to us about that. Just briefly, SEO podcasting, what do we need to know about that?
Yeah. So most people talk about SEO and they just pick up a strategy from, like you said, Google or YouTube, and they're like, it's the same. And it isn't the same at all. It's a completely different algorithm with podcasting, and it's a much friendlier one, as I said before. I think this is the one algorithm out there that really wants us to win. So it's just asking us to do the things it needs to figure out where to show our audience. So with the way that I always explain SEO is that it's more than just picking a keyword and putting it in a title. It's understanding what are those words that our audiences are searching for, but then also understanding what words are not going to get you buried in a huge amount of competition so you can own the word and stand out for it. So there's rankings behind it, and there's all kinds of things we can go into, but really the easiest way to think about it is if you think about a gold star board for like chores, or you do things really well and you get gold stars, that's really what SEO is. So every time you use it in your title and in your show description and show notes, if you use it in your author line where most people don't use it, those are all gold stars that the algorithm is giving you. And it's just helping that understand this is what she talks about, this is who she talks to, and this is what I'm supposed to do with that show. So it's why you get downloads, it's why you chart, it's why you rank, it's why you get more listeners, and it's what helps you actually attract people who are ready to work with you, not people just looking for free advice.
Gotcha. And so spending some time doing our SEO each week when we do our shows is very important. So,
Extremely important. Yeah, very much.
and, we're talking to a lot of, most of our listeners are probably moms. They've struggled with infertility. They've started their own business or they're wanting to. And so they're very busy. We talked about scheduling, but you also talk about repurposing our content, which I love. I love to take a podcast and break it into different, social media posts and YouTube. So talk to us about that. What's the strategy around that just to make it easier for us to repurpose?
Well, I like to think about it from the perspective of your podcast becomes the top of your ecosystem. So most people use podcasting as nurture content. So they get on the mic and we're just going to make friends with the people we talk to, instead of realizing that it should be the top of your entire marketing funnel. And then everything sits below it. So with me, probably the same with you. I start with my podcast and then I use what I talked about on my show to form my content everywhere else. So I'm not having to think of new topics for what am I going to talk on Instagram or what am I going to talk about in my emails or what am I going to talk about here. I know that it's this week I talked about this and we're just going to take that and just break it up. So I might take one piece of a 5-mistake episode and share one episode in an email and then link back to listen to the podcast episode. Or I might take, those 5 things and break that down over 5 different Instagram posts for the week. But I don't try to recreate everything from scratch every time. I always bring it back to the podcast because, again, it's the top of my ecosystem and it's where I want people to find me.
Yeah, and I love that. And I think that's so important to, really, and that's exactly what we do here. I take the podcast and I do bits and pieces of it on different social medias. And I think it was really important too that you said it all links back to the podcast, because that's the main thing we're wanting our audience to do is to listen to the podcast. And that's when they become, they get on your email list and they book a call with you and become a client. So I love that you say that. Talk to us about referral partnerships and collaborations. I've built a big business around this. I love having guests. I also love doing solo episodes, but how can we use our podcast to collaborate with other practitioners and just grow our reach?
A lot of the ways that I think it works well is doing things that are podcast swaps, which is pretty common. So you come on my show, I'll come on your show. We're doing it strategically where there's an opportunity to have shared audience, not necessarily competitive audience, but maybe there's something that you do that benefits the other person's audience and vice versa. We would be a great example of that, right? We have similar audiences, but we do things differently within what our business is. So I come on the show, I would help you, you come on my show, you help me, and we build up those lovely relationships because all it's doing is just helping to strengthen our authority and also helping to strengthen our audience's success. So that's one way. Another way that we can do things is by doing intro swaps. So instead of it being you that's introducing your podcast, you have somebody else's voice say, hi, I'm so-and-so, and this is what I'm doing. And, make sure you listen to it, but come check out my podcast as well at this. And so there's ways that we can get those collaborations in where we give shout outs. You can give a shout out again to another podcast that you love. That's if you like listening to this show, you'll also enjoy listening to this show. So I think finding those ways to be able to partner strategically with people that are going to, again, benefit your audience, but your authority specifically as well is a really strong strategy other than just bringing a guest on for the sake of bringing on a guest.
And I love that. And I think that's so powerful. And two, I feel like you can go with audiences that are similar, but you can also, I've had people on my show that treat pretty much the same people that I treat, but we're two different people. And so one person is going to relate to that person and one person is going to relate to me. So I always feel like don't ever see competition. It's always just collaboration and how can we help each other and grow together. And so I want our listeners to hear that. Yeah. And don't ever be nervous to reach out to somebody because the worst they can say is no. And so you just have to ask.
It's very true. And most of the time, like when we get a really good guest pitch, we say yes because we're like, oh my goodness, it's so, what a blessing, to be able to have that person come on my show and talk about what they know. So it's, sometimes we get ones that are not so great, but when you get good at it, you definitely, most of the time we say yes to it as well.
Sure. Let's talk about tech because I know a lot of people listening are new. They're just starting their businesses and they might be scared of tech. So how can we learn the tech for podcasting and not be scared of it?
Well, I think I'm living proof of that because I bought, again, a $25 microphone off Amazon, and I put my daughter's baby sock on as a pop filter because that's what I had. So I was like, we'll just go with this. And I recorded on that microphone for a full season before I upgraded. And I'm now on my third mic, but it took me some time to get to that. But really, all you need is Zoom, and you need a good microphone. And I think in my case, I have a really great editor, and that's it. And after that, it's just a matter of uploading. This is one of the most tech-friendly and inexpensive ways to be able to market your business, and because you're using your authority every single time. And if you're a good talker, you're going to be a really good podcast host. That's what, and most of us are really good talkers when we know what we're talking about. We like to talk and share. So
I love that. And I did the same thing. You know, I ordered a microphone off of Amazon, and I used that microphone for many years. And then finally I was like, I think I need to upgrade my mic. So you can totally do that. I love that. But it takes very little amount of money to start a podcast. So I love that too, because some other things, you know, take more of an investment.
It does. Yeah. It's only like about $8 a month to be able to host a show, right? If you're editing your own show, then it's not expensive at all in comparison to a lot of the things that we pay for. It's cheaper than email marketing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So talk to us, if you were to start your podcast over today from scratch, is there any mistake that maybe you made in the beginning that you would be like, oh, I'm not going to do that again?
The biggest mistake that I made was positioning my content as nurture content. So I spent a whole year making content that was trying to get people, like giving away free tips and getting people to like me. And it creates a very long process before people actually say, oh, I want to work with her. And I didn't offer enough opportunities and to say, this is how you can work with me. So there wouldn't be those calls to action within the podcast. And there weren't opportunities to say, get my freebie and get on my email list and really understand how to position my show right at the top of bringing people into my world. So that's the mistake that I think almost all of us make, because most of the podcasting advice out there is really for creators, not for business owners with a podcast. And they're very different strategies. And it's not that they're wrong. Like it works for creators, but it's not the same for us. We need conversion built into the strategy from day one. Otherwise, we end up with something that we kind of start to grow a little resentful for, because it's content for the sake of content, kind of like Instagram. And we're like, now what are we doing, right? Nothing comes from it. So we end up quitting our shows.
Right. Yeah. And I love that. And I think that's so important. And I think too, it's important to point out, if you already have a show and you're doing some of these things wrong, it's okay to grow and learn and pivot and continue to change, because I feel like our businesses are always doing that. And so don't feel like you have to quit. It's okay if that's happened. Just pivot and move forward.
Absolutely. I was a year and a half before I figured out how to do it the right way. And now I have a top 20 show. It's the same, right? You learn from your mistakes. It's just a matter of being willing to actually figure out how you can make those simple shifts to make it work in your favor.
Yeah, I love that. And Jan, I could just talk to you all day. We do have to take a short break. We're going to hear a word from our sponsors. But before we go, maybe somebody's listening and they're feeling overwhelmed. They want to start a show, but they're not quite sure. What would you say to their mindset to kind of get them in the headspace to just do it?
I think what I would say is everything is fixable. And the beautiful thing about podcasting is that you can go back and fix anything with it. You can fix your title. You can fix your cover art. You can fix your keywords. You can change audio, and it doesn't affect you. It just makes it better. So don't be afraid to start messy and just go back and change it once you get it figured out.
I love that. And don't be afraid to start messy. You can always change it and figure it out. Amazing. We're going to take a short break. Make sure you stay with us to the second half. We're going to continue talking to Jan, and we're going to talk practical tips for you, for those who want to start a podcast. So we'll be right back. Before we continue, I want to share a resource with you. If you're a beginner or somebody already working in the wellness space and you feel called to support fertility, but you're not quite sure how to turn that into a coaching offer or start a business, I have something that will help you. It's called my Fertility Coaching Roadmap. And in this guide, I teach you step by step how to take your journey with infertility and turn it into a purposeful business, how to integrate fertility coaching into your already established wellness practice, how to go virtual or start an online business, and how to attract aligned clients that get results. If you're ready for more clarity and more support, see the show notes and download a copy of this guide today. Now, let's get back to our episode. Hey, Jan, welcome back.
Welcome. I'm excited. This is fun.
So let's talk practical tips. You gave us a lot in the first half, but maybe 5 things that are non-negotiables for somebody who's thinking of starting or building their podcast. What would you say?
So I would say that the very first thing to think about if you're starting or building your podcast is to position your podcast around an offer from day one. So most of the time we think about putting monetization at the end of our podcast strategy, and I think it should start at the beginning, because that way you're going to make money from your show immediately and find dream clients, and you know the type of content that you should be creating to get them there. The second thing I would say is a lot of the time the advice is given to find an ideal customer avatar for your show. And I would say instead to think about finding someone who's a buyer-ready avatar. So that's somebody who's a bit further down the lane. They understand, maybe they've had some success and they've lost the success, or they understand the cost of something more, and they're looking for a true solution to solve that problem they have. Those are the types of people who convert into buyers sooner, and it doesn't take us as much convincing to help them understand that we're the expert than it does somebody who's just maybe out there still trying to piece it together from free content. The third thing I would say is your SEO strategy. Absolutely. Like, to me, that's a non-negotiable. Even if you have a simple one that just starts off with understanding how to write a title for your show that's going to help people find it, you're going to be miles ahead of everybody else. Because the fact is that only 8% of podcasters have an SEO strategy inside of their podcasting strategy. So if you have one, you are automatically going to stand out. So it's a very simple, easy, free way to get your show up and going in front of other people quicker. Then your content strategy matters. So again, building a content strategy that I would say would be around that 6-part audio funnel. So you're helping people understand a belief shift. You're giving them a quick win. You are then sharing mistakes that they should avoid. You are showing social proof. Then you're moving on and talking about your methodology or framework. And then you're talking about how you can specifically work with them, or they can work with you. And the last one is your brand. And so podcasting brands, which is going to be your cover art and your name, those are things that people, I think, don't talk enough about, of how important it is to the algorithm as well. But more important is when people are looking for podcasts in their players, they're looking for things that remind them of other shows they listen to. And so most of the time we end up branding our podcast to look like our business instead of branding our podcast to look like the actual niche that we fit into with the rest of our competition, so to speak, or other people like us. So understanding it from that perspective really changes things, because the brain goes through and it's like, oh, I listened to that show and that show and that show. Well, that show looks like it. I'm going to give it a try. Instead of it saying, well, that looks so different than everything else, I'm just going to scroll past it because it's not for me. So it's the one time in marketing that I would say to you, don't try to stand out. So stand out with your content, stand out with your SEO strategy, but with your art, try to fit into it with the other people around you who also do similar shows to you.
Gotcha. And then on that same note, and I love all of your tips. I think all of those are so helpful, but let's talk about the name of the show. I know SEO plays into this, but any strategy around naming the show?
Yeah, I would definitely say a lot of the time we tend to go clever instead of clear with our podcast names. And I am notorious for this because I have done this in my own show more than once, where I've been like, I need to rebrand the title because I'm not showing up in the right player, right? It's putting me in, my first business podcast would serve me up in the wellness category. And I don't teach wellness. I love it. I listen to wellness, but I don't teach it. I teach strategies. So making sure again that you're using SEO that clearly identifies who the podcast is for. So your audience. And I don't mean just gender, but actually like calling it out. So if you're coaches or consultants or creators or practitioners, like finding the keywords in there that people are saying, oh, that's me when they see it. And also making sure that you're using keywords that have to talk about what the transformation is going to be in some way. So if we're talking about, like in my case, my podcast is called Evergreen Marketing Simplified. So again, evergreen marketing, that's what I teach. So I just happen to teach it through podcasting. So we wanted to really get that idea around what am I talking about and who is it for? And that's going to help you with the algorithm far more than being cute.
Gotcha. I love that. And we talked before about one thing that you would do differently if you started your podcast today, but what is one thing that you are so proud of doing that you're like, that was the best thing I could have done?
With the podcast, rebranding my show and moving my content from being nurture content to more sales focused content, because it transformed my business and it happened really quickly. So it went from me, again, kind of struggling to get seen to climbing up the charts really quickly and globally as well. So, and I think there's something that you're very proud of when you're able to say that you have a top show. There's a lot of work that we put into what we do. And I care deeply about my show and my content. content. And I know you feel the same about yours as well. So when you get that recognition from your audience, but you also get the recognition from the algorithm and the industry itself, that what you have to say matters, it feels so good. It's so rewarding. And it's fun too to say, I'll just say this. It's fun sometimes when people say, well, what do you do for a living? And I'm like, oh, I'm a podcaster. And everyone's like, really? And it's a great conversation starter. Everybody's like, tell me about your show. So no matter what room you're in, you always have something to talk about.
Exactly. I'm telling you, they think we're celebrities, and
They do. I know, it's fabulous. Yes.
Well, very good, Jan. Well, again, you've given us so much information today, and I'm so excited to have you here. We do have to start to wrap up. There's a few things I like to do before we close the show. First, I just want to say thank you. I've loved everything that you've taught us today, and I really appreciate your time. So thank you.
Well, thank you. This is just such a pleasure to be here, and I really respect the work that you're doing and your audience does, and deeply and personally respect it. So it's just a pleasure to be able to come and serve.
Thank you so much. And one thing, I do want our audience to get to know you a little more personally. And so how I do that is through a lightning round. And so if you're open to that, the way that it works is I'm just going to ask you a series of questions. You're going to say the first thing that comes to mind.
Let's do it.
All right. And you can pass if you want to pass one.
Okay.
Okay. So what's one thing that brings you joy?
My family.
I love it. One piece of tech that you can't live without.
Oh, one piece of tech I can't live without. I'm going to have to say that it's my phone, and I wish that I was not addicted to my phone, but I'm a very proud phone owner, and I think I would feel like I lost an arm if I didn't have it anymore. It's where I listen to all my podcasts, so I need it.
Exactly. I thought you were going to say your microphone.
Yeah, no, I should have said that. That would have been smarter.
How about AI? Yes, no, still figuring it out.
Yes, but strategically. So I don't think that it should replace your expertise. I think it should be used to enhance it. And if you know how to use that the right way, then it's just going to help you like become your copywriter or your assistant or, you know, the person to bounce with, but it should never replace what you are the expert at.
Yes. How about a song that gets you moving?
Oh, there's somebody, it's not a song per se, but Stephen Wilson Jr. has become my new favorite. And I don't know if you've heard him, but I just love his music. And he's country, but he's like he's soulful and beautiful and unique and different. And just think he is one of the most incredible musicians I've heard in a very long, and I'm married to a musician. So I should have actually said my husband's music, but it was like, but I think Stephen Wilson Jr. is fabulous. And I love turning it up and cranking it in the car.
Amazing. I love it. My husband's also a hobbyist musician, but yeah, I hear you. Yeah. How about what has been your favorite guest to interview if you have guests on your show?
I do have guests, and I've had a lot on that I'm very proud. I've had some big names and some really exciting guests, but I think there's a theme happening here. My favorite guest was actually my husband, and I brought him on my show, and we talked about what it was like to be married to an entrepreneur when you were not necessarily very entrepreneurial, and what it meant to support your wife when you were going through and trying to build a business, right? When it scared him and he wasn't too sure how we were going to do this. And we just had a very open, honest conversation about how partners can support even when they're afraid. And I really, really I got a lot of great feedback about that episode, and I really loved that conversation.
I love that. That gave me such a great idea. I need to do the same because it is hard to be married to an entrepreneur.
It is. Yes.
I'm a dreamer, and so my husband has to reel me in. So I love that. I'm going to have to go listen to your show and listen to the episode. Yeah. And then final question, what's one piece of advice you have for your younger self?
Oh, I think it's going to go back to the same advice I left with before. Like, you're going to figure it out, kid. Like, you can figure it out. It's all fixable. It's more important to just keep trying until you get it right than worrying about what you get wrong.
I love that. It's all figure outable.
It's all figure outable. Yes. And all fixable. Yes.
Yes. Well, to switch gears a little bit, the purpose of this show, my mission is to solve infertility. And one of the ways I'm doing that is through certifying fertility coaches. And so talk to us about that. Why should somebody think about getting a certification as a coach if they want to work in this field?
I think you're going to change lives. It really is what it comes down to, right? And personally speaking, like what the process that I went through in order to be able to have my daughter as well. And it was a long journey, and it was worth every minute of it now looking back. And there were some heartaches, and there were definitely times that things did not work out the way that I had hoped they would work out. And I think all women who walk this journey, we understand, right? When we understand and we share it, and it may be different for each of us, but there's a shared bond in there. So having somebody who's your guide and your champion and the shoulder shoulder to cry on. In it, whether good or bad times, there's always that person there that's going to give you that advice that you need and is going to provide that understanding on something that most people are just too afraid to talk about out loud. So having the safety of that, I think, is such a beautiful thing. And I'm so grateful for the people who were part of my journey.
Yeah, I love that. Well, tell everybody where they can find you, Jan, and learn more about your work. And you also have a free guide for us. Talk to us about that. And then, let's close with that.
Perfect. So you can find me pretty much anywhere online at janditchfield.co. I'm a CO, not a com, so CO. My podcast is Evergreen Marketing Simplified, and you can find it on any of the major players as well. And I do hang out on Instagram, mainly in stories more than anything else, but I'm always there in my DMs too. And if you are thinking about starting a podcast, or if you have one and you really want to understand what are the steps it takes to monetize it, I have a free guide that will walk you through the 12 most important steps to create a profitable podcast. And you can grab that at janditchfield.co/free guide.
Amazing. And that will all be in the show notes. And so we'll make it really easy for everybody to find you and just learn more from you because you've been so great. So any final thoughts? What do you want to leave us with?
I think my final thoughts are just going to be, one of the most beautiful things about podcasting is that you get to connect with people in a way that is so meaningful. And I have created some incredible clients off my show who've turned into incredible friends. So, and the thing that's also so beautiful about podcasting is that it removes all those worries about being visible that many of us have online, because you don't have to be perfect to show up and record, and you don't know who's on the other end of listening to that unless they tell you. So you get to be yourself without having a reflection from Instagram looking at you, or hearts or likes or unfollows. It's just true and pure. So if you're looking for something that's going to be profitable but also just feels good, podcasting is the right thing for you.
I love that. Amazing. Well, thank you again for being here.
Thank you so much.
And thank you to everybody who's listening to this episode. We're so grateful you're here, and we'll see you next week. So have a great week, and bye for now.